record here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Perfect. If I can get a confirmation from somebody that they can see my screen, give me a thumbs up. Kim, perfect. Chris, thank you. Okay. So before we get started here, the procedure for today, like I said, if you want to put on your camera, you can. You don't have to. I won't hold it against you. Along the way, there will be plenty of time for questions. The last session that we did of one of these, or this session in particular, took about 1 hour and 45 minutes. So there's an hour and 45 minutes worth of material with a couple questions, but we do have 2 hours slotted for this. I want to be very respectful of your time. So once we kind of get to that last minute there, we'll kind of table anything and we can take further conversation offline if need be. Okay, so here is the agenda for today. You should have received this from me yesterday. If not, here it is today. We're going to go over what's new. And then the rest of today's session will be kind of catered towards mimicking the committee guide, which you can find on our website. So we're going to talk about the USG admin portal, where you guys who are committee members do most of your work. Definition of a club and what all that means. What you should need to know and what knowledge you should be teaching your members at your club, the fundamentals of the WHS. Score submission and the keys there. Player scoring record maintenance, which everybody loves to do. If you haven't gotten one of those already, you will, I promise you. Then we're going to talk about penalty scores and adjusting a handicap index and the tools and buttons you need to know where they are during that time. And everybody's favorite, performing handicap reviews and the tools that are currently available to you on that front. Okay, so let's get started here. And then just one note. So every time we see a screen like this will be our questions screen. So whenever we come to this, I'll ask everybody for questions. Okay, so if you think of something along the way and it's not a quick answer, or you don't think it'll be a quick answer, if you can just save it for one of these screens, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so what's new? Club certification, right? The good thing is all current active clubs have been certified for 2023. If you're like, oh, I didn't take the exam yet this year, it's a good thing because you don't necessarily need to take the exam every year. The exam is only required once every update to the rules of handicapping. So if you or somebody at the club took it in 2020 when the rules of handicapping were updated, that means the club has been certified for those 3 years or 4 years until the next update. Come 2024 though, every club and every committee, one person from each club will need to take the updated rules of handicapping exam and pass with an 80% in order to maintain their active status in GIN as a club. Okay. Now, I do get a lot of questions like, hey, I'm new to handicapping, things like that. In cases like that, again, you don't have to take the exam because technically your club is certified, but I would recommend you take it anyway, just to see what you may need to brush up on, before the season starts, so you can know what you're providing oversight for. Okay, so just a quick update there. The USGA assessment. So there is one thing that is required for this year, and the USGA has kind of taken a step forward here and kind of took the burden on their shoulders. And they have provided every club for every AGA in every state a unique link that will have them confirm the details of their club, like who's the main contact person, club name, club number, and email address. That's all the club assessment is. If you have not done this, please let me know, because I was able to get all the links for each of our clubs, and I will be able to send you a link or links if you are a handicap chairperson for multiple clubs, and I can send you those to get that taken care of. If this is not done by, I'm calling it June 1st, but June 30th at the latest, your club and all of its members will be set to NH until the club has been authorized. And I will not be doing that. The USGA will step in and do that. So please, if you do one thing all year, or if you take one thing away from this seminar today, please do the club assessment if you have yet to do so. And if somebody else may have done it or you're not sure, send me an email and I can check the list of clubs who've completed it. And if your name is not on there, we can make sure we get it on there. Okay. And just I took a picture of or a screenshot of what the email looks like. Initially, a lot of people thought it was spam, so they may have deleted it. It was not spam. It was just sent by the USGA versus being sent from us. And then the email kind of started like this. Hello, whoever the main contact is. It'll have the club name here, and it'll start the 2023 club assessment, so on and so forth. Okay, so be sure you have that completed. Club info forms. If you had any changes to the committee, new handicap chair, new club president, new finance individual, please fill out this form, which can be found on our website, coloradogolf.org, under the membership tab. On the right-hand side of the drop-down box there, you'll see club information form. Complete that with all the current officers. And as soon as you hit done on that page, we will get an update email and we'll be able to update our contacts if they have changed. If not, you should be good to go. No need to do it. Digital profile. So this was new as of 2021. Those of you who've been around, a few years now, you guys know all about the digital profile. But in order to secure individuals' data, the USGA and GIN required people to now create a password associated to their email or GIN number. And essentially what that does is it secures their contact information, their number, their email address, their home address, things like that. Because before, all of that information could technically be found if people tried hard enough. So this was just another level of security that is needed in order to protect people from data phishing and getting people's email addresses, phone numbers, things like that. And one of the big things with this, though, is that golfers can no longer share an email address. So people will need to get a new address. If people have been sharing the same email address for 30 years and refuse to do it, let me know. There's a workaround. Although USGA doesn't like us to use it, there is a workaround that we can do. But again, just give me a call and we can talk about that later. Okay, digital profile. So this is what it looks like when logging in. The left side is gin.com. Again, you need email address, GIN number, and the password associated. And if somebody's brand new and has never had a GIN number before, they could actually create this on their own. All they need to do is just click this right side of the gin.com screen, and that'll get them started on the process of creating their digital profile. And then same thing can be seen, but on the right-hand side, this is the mobile app version, both iOS and Android. If you have credentials, you just put them in here, log in. And if you don't and are new to the system, they can actually create their digital profile right on their phone. Okay, so that's pretty easy there. And then you may be asking yourself, well, who do I know who does and who does not have a digital profile? Good question, sir or ma'am that asked. Well, this column right here in the GIN admin portal, all right, the digital profile has its own space. Every person with a blue identifier or this blue circle in this digital profile column means that they have a digital profile and they're good to go. All right, in this case, Elizabeth Carter here, she does not have a profile set up. So what does that mean exactly? So that means she will not be able to post scores to the GIN using the GIN app. She will not be able to post scores to GIN using gin.com. And the only way that she would be able to post scores would be through the kiosk, if the course still has one. Most likely it's an iPad or a smaller computer nowadays, or scores will have to be posted for them via a committee member. So they don't need one. It'll just make everybody's lives easier, especially to post on the day of, after they played, if they were to have a digital profile. So take a look at your rosters. I encourage you to take a look at your rosters and try to get those who have yet to have a digital profile and create one to get it done, to help them out and to help you out as well. Okay, now everybody's starting to get back into the groove of things once all this white stuff gets off of the grass here and the weather starts warming up a little bit. But some people haven't logged into their digital profile for a couple months now. And unfortunately, for some, passwords just don't get written down everywhere. They're like, oh, I made this easy enough. I can remember this. Well, most of the time they forget. And one of the easiest passwords to forget is one that you only use a couple times a year, especially in the months of May through October. So what's your main duty as an admin here may be resetting people's passwords. Okay, so your bread and butter on this site here, along with the other tools it has, is in this digital profile section under the account tab, is this first green button here that says send reset password. So all you need to do is click that, and it'll send a reset password request to the email for that person on file. Okay, if you need to remove a digital profile, you can do that as well, but I honestly have not used this button since it was instituted, so we'll see if I get one of those this year. And then if somebody, for whatever reason, has issues receiving this email automatically sent from the USGA, whether it got flagged as a spam sender or things like that, you can actually generate the digital unique code to create a new password, paste it into an email sent from you, and send it using your email instead of sending it through Jen. So a couple of different things we can do here, but this is where a lot of people will live early on in the season. Okay. GPS. So this was introduced early on last year, like early summer. And this is a very powerful tool. I'm actually very happy the USGA works with a GPS company now, because now everybody who has an active GIN membership here at Colorado or another AGA, they will have access to the free version of the GPS software. Like with anything nowadays, if you want a little bit more out of it, you can upgrade to the enhanced version of GPS, which comes with distances not only to the center, but to the front and the back of the green, as well as a putting heat map and the ability to keep track of distances for your clubs. So that's kind of really the only difference there. But if you just have the regular version, you will always get distance to the center of the green from wherever you are. And now not only can you do it on your phone, but you can actually connect it to currently just your Apple Watch. So those of you who have Apple devices, have an Apple Watch and an Apple phone, once you load the course on your phone, it'll actually know that there's a watch located to your phone device, and it will kick the GPS to your phone. So it's almost like having a Garmin watch. I use this for course rating all the time, and there's a couple of other raters who do this as well. And there are some others who are considering getting rid of their other GPS devices and going to this. So just a heads up there, but this is new as of early summer last year. Okay, and then games. This was a fairly new introduction into the app, probably around the end of summertime last year. So like late August, early September. Now, this is separate from Golf Genius, of course. This is within the GIN app itself. You do have the ability to play match games against other people or your friends whenever you're playing golf. So right now you can only play a net match play, a gross match play, or if you just want to play straight up golf, one person in the group can have access to keep score for the entire foursome, which is pretty cool. Somebody doesn't like using their phone, or if you know somebody won't post for like 2-3 days afterwards, one person can keep score for everybody and post the scores actually for all, the group right after the round. This way it's done, posted, and you're good to go for the day. Okay. Do you need to use it? No, just a tool that you have available to you if you want to. Okay. Push notifications. This was new as of last year. Everybody with push notifications turned on should have received a push notification from me on March 15th, notifying you all that it was opening day, not for the Rockies, but for golf here in the state of Colorado. So our active season is between March 15th to November 15th every year. So moving forward, you're most likely going to be getting at least one push notification from me on March 15th and one on November 15th. Okay, but there's a couple other types of push notifications that you can get if you want to. The first one is a handicap index update. The second one is whenever a score is edited or deleted. And the third one is if your profile information has been updated, i.e. your email address, phone number, things like that. If the committee or you decide to update that stuff, you'll get a push notification confirming that this was done. if you get one and nobody did anything, then you may want to talk to who's ever in charge of your profile there at your club. Okay. Any questions on the new happenings in Gin? Good thing with it being a cloud-based system now, it's always changing and updating. So more updates to come. Sorry, Kathleen, go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron, I was out in Palm Desert and I used the Gin with my watch.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think you have to upgrade to use it with your watch.
No, you shouldn't have to.
Oh, well, I thought for some reason it sort of seemed to force me to do that. So I now have the upgraded version.
Interesting. Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
The other thing is I really couldn't tell if the distance that I was getting on my watch was where my phone was or where my watch was.
Yes, so that has been changed right now because that was when were you playing golf? When was that?
Probably 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Okay, that is currently being implemented because right now the distance is where your phone is.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Correct. So that's a good, I'm glad you brought that up because we just learned about this recently in our last call 2 weeks ago. And so what they're doing is if you decide to use the watch, the system will then move to wherever your watch is and tell you the distance from there. So it's in process or in progress right now as we speak. Unfortunately, I don't know when that will be released, but I know they're working on that pretty furiously. So I'm hoping it's soon.
Well, I have to say, on the phone, it's a beautiful app.
I agree. But good. I will relay that to the Gin team. They're very proud of their GPS app. So
yeah, I like it very much.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions about any of the new items here in Gin? Okay, I will take your silence as a no. And we'll talk about our next section here, the USGA admin portal. All right, so this is where, if you're on the committee, which everybody here should be, will do most of your work. Okay, so we're going to talk about this in sections. Okay, the first section will be logging into the admin portal. If you're new, in order to log in, you will use your same Gin login credentials to log into the admin portal. Because all that happens when you're given access as an admin is the system gives your email access to log in to another website. So you don't need to create a new password or anything like that. That's why you're just able to use the same email and the same password just for 2 different websites. Okay. Hopefully that clears up a couple things there. Okay, so when you first log in, this will be what you see. All right. You'll see a space where you can enter in golfers' information if you need to search for them. You'll see a couple different tools here, which we'll kind of go over later. The roster, your active golfers will by default be shown to you. Golfer groups, if you have any golfer groups set up, and the account of the club, which we'll talk about what needs to be done there. Okay, but the first thing that everybody should be in the process of doing or should be doing soon is adding golfers to your roster who want to be a part of it. Okay, so the first piece is, you guessed it, clicking that nice big green add golfer button. And there's a couple different ways to add golfers to your league. 2 that are associated with new golfers to your league, and 1 with current golfers who may be inactive on your roster. So we'll go over the 2 new options first. Okay, when you click that green add golfer button, you will get 2 different options here, and there is a very important difference between the 2. Okay. I always recommend, you don't have to, but I always recommend that you search for anybody who is like, oh yeah, I'm just joining, I've never played before, things like that, which sometimes they mean I've never played in Colorado before, but I've played in Arizona, Texas, or other places like that, just moved here. So they have a GIN number, but it's just in another state. A lot of people think a GIN number can only be associated to one state. but a GIN number is actually your social security number for golf. So regardless of where you go, what country you're going to, what country you live in, that GIN number will follow you there, okay, along with your golf's history. All right, so I always recommend clicking the search for existing golfer first before adding any new golfer second. So always clicking this one first. If you don't find anything, clicking this second. Okay, so let's talk about this first option. Okay, when you click search for existing member, you will get this screen here. You will be able to search by, if you have their GIN number, perhaps they had a GIN number 10 years ago and they just want to see if it's active. I did have one of those that was still active. I don't know how. Must not have gotten recycled in the old GIN system, but we were able to reactivate it and adjust their handicap index to their current playing ability. So that was pretty cool. That was my first and probably my last one of those, but always check. You can search by email address there as well, as you can see. And of course, you can search by last name and previous state that they were a member of if they were coming to you from out of state. But again, I can't harp on this enough. Please, please, please search for people first before adding them as a new golfer. Because if they get added again, you'll probably get an error because the email addresses will most likely match. And then what you'll do is you have to call me, then I'll have to merge the two. And then you can go from there. The process is easy if you do accidentally add somebody a second time, but we want to make sure people only exist in the GIN system once. Okay. Okay, now if we click that other side, we're like, okay, we checked. They are no longer active. They had a GIN number years and years and years ago. It's gone, it's been recycled, and they want to play golf again. Okay, so what do? We need to add them as a new golfer. So we're clicking this option now, and this is the screen you'll get. There's a couple of required pieces of information. Okay, first piece is the membership code. You'll either have an R or a J. R means regular membership, or J will mean junior membership. Junior is anybody who is 18 years of age or younger. As soon as they turn 19, that will then turn into an R, and they'll be billed as an adult golfer. Okay, next piece, first name, piece after that, last name, gender, and email. Those are the required pieces. If you want, you can put in phone number, birthday, things like that, but you don't need to. But as soon as you enter all those required pieces, not sure why this isn't highlighted. I must have forgotten this, my apologies. Click on the add golfer button, which will appear a darker blue, and you'll be good to go from there. They'll be added to your roster and they'll be set to go for the season. Okay. Okay, now the third option of adding a golfer to your league refers to golfers who were active in the past on your roster, went inactive for whatever reason, whether you inactivated them at the end of the season last year or 2 years ago, and they're just getting back into the swing of things, and need to be reactive or reactivated on your roster. First thing you want to do is, as I mentioned before, as soon as you log in, you will always by default see active members. Okay, the first thing you want to do is change this to inactive. Okay, next thing you want to do is search for the member who was previously active on your roster. So you can type it in here. You only need 3 letters for a search to pop up. And then in this case, we're activating Bro XYZ. And then as soon as you click this box next to the person's name that you want to reactivate, you'll get these 2 green boxes. One that says activate, one that says inactivate. We don't need the inactivate one because they're already inactive. So all we do is click activate, click when you want them to be activated, whether right then or a date in the future, save, and then they'll be reactivated. That one's actually easier. So, but there's 3 different ways to make somebody active on your roster. Hopefully that helps. Okay. And then admins. Okay. So not only are we adding individuals to the roster, but we're also adding admins. People are changing hands, changing duties, things like that. So there may be additional admins that need to be added to the club. So when this happens, it's easy. I don't need to do it necessarily. I can. I don't need to. Sometimes it's, as soon as April, May hits, sometimes I'm very difficult to get a hold of. And so you can actually do this on your own. So let me show you how to do it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click on this account tab. Okay. Once you're in that account tab, that will take you to the account of the golf club in question here. Okay, so you'll see these 4 options: primary, home course, membership types, and manage users. Click on manage user. Right now, I'm the only person who's an admin of the Bushwood Country Club. But if I wanted to add others, you just simply click on the add user, type in the email of the individual you want to add as an admin, and you can go from there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then all they have to do is use their current gym credentials to log into the admin portal, and they can help with duties as needed. And then I always get the question, what if we don't want them to have full access? We just want them to do scores or things like that. There's 4 different types of accesses for admin types. So you guys can choose, if you want to, the level of access you want other people to have. Now, if you need to delete a contact, that's when you'll need to call me and I'll inactivate and delete that person. Okay, and unfortunately, you can't do that on your own. So just let me know and I'll get that done for you. Okay, any questions about those 2 simple duties here?
Yeah, Aaron, on the new member, and then I saw it on your list of members, that local number was at the very bottom of the add member. What is that number used for?
Nothing anymore, really. Local numbers were used to, if somebody was a member of multiple clubs, it was used to differentiate between individuals. So if they had a local number here and a local number there, the 2 different numbers would differentiate the courses. Make sense?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But I don't know any clubs that give people local numbers anymore. And if they do, it's on accident. Good question. Phone line's busy today. Okay. All right. Well, by the silence here, we'll keep on going. Or Kathleen, did you have one? I think I saw yours. Nope. Okay. Let's keep it moving. So the Handicap Committee, or establish a Handicap Committee. Again, the rest of this seminar here is kind of similar to the way the committee guide is set up. So the next piece would be establishing a Handicap Committee. All right. So the definition of a Handicap Committee is, as you see here, an entity established by a golf club or an AGA, which is responsible for ensuring compliance with obligations of the golf club or authorized association under the rules of handicapping. The good thing is by changing handicap system to the rules of handicapping, it is now governing, because back in the day, the handicap system was just that. Most of it was a recommendation on how to do different things. Now they're rules. Now, if somebody breaks the rules, then they can, get the consequences, if you will. But yeah, so the Handicap Committee is pretty much in charge of making sure their club or clubs maintain compliance of the rules of handicapping. Okay. It is recommended that the Handicap Committee be comprised of at least 3 people, with an odd number, with an odd number of members to aid when voting occurs if needed. If 2 people are on, opposite sides of, a decision, that 3rd person would be there to, make the call. And then the Handicap Committee should be chaired by members of the club, and an employee of the golf course can chair it, but it is recommended that they serve as an advisor or in an advisory role, just so employment won't get affected in cases where they have to make the call, things like that, which is why we want members of the club controlling the members and then using them as an advisor. Okay. Doesn't happen all the time, but that's what's recommended. Okay, and then in order to define how different things are done, such as hard cap, soft cap, what happens if somebody's injured, things like that, it is recommended that the Handicap Committee develop policies and procedure documents and give those to the members of the club wishing to establish and maintain a handicap index. Okay. Just to make sure everybody's on the same page and one person doesn't feel singled out if needed. So I always recommend doing that. And if you do that, you don't need to send it to us. I know we used to, or my predecessor and people before him used to have clubs send in their bylaws and things like that. We don't need to do that as long as you have them. And not only the committee, but also the members know kind of what's going on. That's really all that we ask. Okay, if you're kind of new or you're like, hey, we don't have any policies or procedures or anything like that, or any governing documents, do you have a place to start? Well, I don't technically, but the rules of handicapping and the committee guide does. Excuse me. On page 42 of the committee guide, unfortunately, it's not hardbound. You'll only be able to find that virtually on our website as a PDF, which you can download for free whenever you want. On page 42 of that guide, there will be some sample policies and procedures that the committee can use, and then they can add in things as needed for their club specifically. Okay, so the information is there if you need it or want to take a look. Okay, any questions there? Pretty simple.
So Aaron, are we
Mhm.
supposed, I don't think we've ever had a handicap committee. We've had a handicap chair.
Yeah,
Are you-
same
are you-
thing. Same thing.
Okay, so it's okay that we don't have a committee.
Correct, because the committee refers to president, handicap chair, finance, things like that. Some courses have just the handicap committee because, you know, the basics are kind of done outside, you know, by staff, but then any handicap decisions or questions are done by, you know, a member of each of the clubs at the golf course. Most of the time that's kind of in private clubs. So they have just handicap committees, but other leagues and things have their own committee, which contain club president, handicap chair, finance, things like that.
Okay,
Good question. As long as one person is there, then we're good. Okay. Any other questions? All right. All right. Coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. That's okay. Perfectly fine. All right. The definition of a club. So we'll kind of go why this slide is important, or this section of slides are important here. Okay, club requirements. Well, the definition, first of all, is as determined by the USGA, a golf club is an organization of at least 10 active individual members that operates under bylaws with committees to supervise golf activities, provide peer review, and maintain the integrity of the rules of handicapping. Okay, so that's the basic definition straight out of the book. And there are two basic items that'll be monitored quarterly, not only by us here at the CGA, but also the USGA as well. And those two pieces, or those two items are, does the club have at least 10 members on their roster? And has a member or members taken and passed and achieved at least an 80% on the WHS Rules of Handicapping exam? Those two things will always be measured and given updates on to me by, like I said, us here at in the office and the USGA. Okay. What the or should I say what Jen has introduced in the USGA is a quarterly checkpoint system. Right. So what are they checking for? They are checking for clubs who have under 10 members or who have not yet passed the rules of handicapping exam. Just so you guys know, after I activate a new club in the system, at that point, that club has 60 days to take and pass the exam, as well as get at least 10 members on their roster. If they do not do so, they will not be able to activate that league. Okay. All right. And so each quarter, USGA will send us kind of the clubs that need some help, or clubs who have needed help over a couple quarters, and what could potentially happen to that club if they don't meet the basic minimum requirements. And so one of the things is if they don't meet one of those two requirements, it will cause all members in that league to have a handicap index of NH, because the USGA will go in and set that club to not authorized. So just be sure that you have more than 10 members in your league. and somebody within your league has taken and passed the WHS exam. Most of the time, most of the leagues really don't have to worry about this. There's a handful each year that we monitor very closely. So I think most of you guys on the call really don't need to worry about this, but just so you know, there is a checkpoint system and both us and the USGA are keeping tabs on all the clubs. Any questions there?
Aaron, I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Excuse me. So, because I'm new in this handicap chair position,
Mhm.
how do I verify that a person has taken the exam since it's not required that I do it this year?
So you don't need to worry about anything.
I don't,
Correct. Not for this year because somebody took it for your league in 2020.
but how do I verify that someone took it?
Because your league is still currently active.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yeah, but remember in 2024, then either you or somebody
Right.
else in that league will need to take it.
Okay,
And then at that point, if somebody hasn't taken it early, we will be in pretty much constant contact until you do.
and will
So,
we get like notifications of how to take it and,
Yes, you'll receive all that information. So I actually haven't been certified yet, so I will be getting certified here in September. And then after that, I'll probably try to do 1 or 2 sessions by the end of this year. And then I'll probably do a couple of these virtually next year, and then I may do a couple in person as well. So we'll see, but then, the test will all be online just so we can track people's progressions and things like that. So,
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, good question.
thank you.
Mhm. Okay, any other questions on that? It was only 2 slides, but there was a lot of information on there. Okay. Now, for those of you who were part of my Handicap Index 101 sessions, a couple of these slides will be familiar to you. If not, and you know kind of what's going on here, I apologize for the repetition, but we do want to be sure that not only you know what you should be teaching your members, but you know exactly what these are here, okay? And those are the fundamentals of the World Handicap System and the rules of handicapping, okay? So here's a couple different items that you should know and your members should know as well, potentially, anyway. The first one is the minimum number of scores needed to obtain a handicap index. Used to be 5 18-hole scores or 10 9-hole scores. Now that's wiped away. Now, in order to get an initial handicap index, 54 holes of golf need to be played and posted. Okay, there is no time limit to submitting those scores, but it is strongly recommended that at least those initial scores be posted hole by hole to get a better idea of the potential of the player. I always recommend that have the system do things for you as well, mainly the net double bogey math. But if you trust your members, things like that, they can post their scores, 9-9 total. But for those of you who want the system to do it for you, post your whole scores hole by hole, and the system will take care of the rest. Okay, item 1. Item 2 is the maximum handicap index any one person can have. One of the big ticket items of the World Handicap System is to be inclusive, and the other one is to be accessible. So regardless of where you come from, what country you live in, how good or bad your golf game is, this golf game or the game of golf is for you, and you will have access to maintain and play golf with whomever, wherever you want to, and be able to keep track of your scores along the way. Okay, that is why instead of 36.4 for men and 40.4 for women, now the maximum handicap index, regardless of gender, is 54.0. Okay. All right. Okay, item 3. The calculation of a handicap index. Those of you who've kind of been around for a little while know that the old handicap index used to have something called bonus for excellence in it. I got to be honest that I really didn't know why there was a bonus for excellence. I thought bonus would be greater than 100% versus giving things a little bit of a haircut. So they got rid of that confusion for the average golfer and things like that. And what they did, and who I'm referring to by what they is the WHS board, comprised of the 7 governing or the former governing bodies of a handicap. They decided to, instead of taking that old handicap equation and keeping it the same, they said, let's just get rid of it. And then we're going to calculate a handicap index using the 8 lowest score differentials out of the previous 20 scores. A lot of people, when they get a handicap index, they think their handicap index is comprised of the lowest scores and the average of those. That's kind of correct. In order to get a handicap index, every score you post calculates a score differential, and your handicap index is then based on your 8 lowest score differentials. Okay. And if you look into the system has this information for you. And by the system, I mean the admin portal. So this is my account here. These are my scores in 2021. So let me orient you real quick if you're new to this. So this first column here, you'll see a couple of stars, and most likely you'll see 8 if I have 20 scores. And these stars signify the 8 lowest score differentials being used in my handicap calculation. Okay, so you can see star here associated to a low differential, star here associated to a low differential. But you'll also be able to see score type, whether it's home, away, and for combined. When this score was played, hopefully, the score itself, the rating and slope of the tees played, and then again, obviously the score differential and where I played. Okay, just basic orientation there. All right, so now I know you're wondering, what exactly is the score differential equation? Well, here we go. Score differential is comprised of the sum of 113, also known as standard slope, divided by the slope rating of the tees played. You then take that and you multiply it by the sum of the adjusted gross score minus the course rating of the tees played minus any PCC adjustment. Okay, and that'll get you your score differential, because then you round to the nearest 10th and you'll get something anywhere between 0.1 and 54.1 if you want, or 53.1. Okay, now what if somebody's new, right? Somebody just posted their 54th hole and they got that initial handicap index. Well, with only 3 scores technically, has that golfer even shown their potential yet? Not really, because a golfer plays to their potential 1 out of every 5 times, right? Without them having played 5 times, but only 3, technically, either their 4th or the 5th time, they can have a really good score. So in order to protect the field, if that person with that initial handicap index decides to play in it with an initial handicap index, the system will automatically take a bit of a haircut protecting the field. Okay, so as you'll see here in this chart, which can also be found in the rules of handicapping, with those initial 3 scores, the system will take the lowest 1 differential and subtract 2 points from it, thus protecting the field if they were to play in an event. Okay, with more information comes a better picture of the potential as a golfer, so the less of an adjustment that needs to be made to their handicap index. So the more scores they post, the more, all right, getting ahead of myself there. So the more scores they post, the more averages that the system will take, and the less adjusting the system will need to do. Okay. All right. Course handicap. There's technically 3 different types.
Aaron,
Oh,
can we go
yes.
back to the formula for the score differential?
Of course. Okay. Everybody got that? Beverly, you need me to stay there? Or you good to go? Okay. All right, we'll keep moving forward there. Hopefully you got that written down. Okay, so as I was saying, there's 3 different types of handicaps that somebody can have. So when somebody said, so when I get the question, what is a handicap? I'm like, okay, there's actually 3 you can have. You can have a handicap index, you can have a course handicap, or you can have a playing handicap. Okay, so we know what our handicap index is. It's comprised of our 8 lowest score differentials out of our previous 20 scores. Now, in order to calculate a course handicap, we need to know what our handicap index is, as well as the slope and rating and par of the tees we're playing. Right, so what exactly is a course handicap? Well, as we see here, a course handicap will be the number of strokes a player receives to play down to par of the tees being played. Okay, so here's the equation for a course handicap. All it is your handicap index multiplied by slope of the tees being played, divided by 113, also known as standard slope. You take the sum of that little equation there and you add it to course rating minus par. Now this right here took away what people used to know as 3-5, right? So 3-5 was gone, is gone, will never come back because now it is part of the course handicap equation itself. So when people say, oh, what if we're playing 2 different sets of tees in the same competition? Well, the course handicap equation, as you can see here, takes care of that math for you. Because most likely the slope and the rating of both of those sets of tees will be different. Therefore, the course handicaps from each set of tee will be different as well. Okay. Okay. Now going back to that 3rd handicap that people could potentially have is that playing handicap. So this was always calculated, but it was never given its own name before. It was also known as a course handicap or an adjusted course handicap, if you will. So most of the time, the playing handicap and the course handicap will be the exact same, right? The only time the playing handicap will be different is whenever a handicap allowance will be used for the type of play for that day. Okay, so in order to calculate a playing handicap, you simply just take the course handicap and you multiply it by the handicap allowance. And then the one piece that I forgot to tell you on purpose is you take the unrounded course handicap multiplied by the handicap allowance. All right. And then there's a little note there if different tees are in use. They have a different par. Then, of course, the difference in par will be allocated. But that's the only additional adjustment that needs to be made for a playing handicap index. Most of the time, it'll just be course rating or course handicap divided by or multiplied by the handicap allowance. My apologies. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's dive in just a little bit deeper. Okay. As I mentioned, playing handicap with a different par. So when that happens, course handicap multiplied by handicap allowance, you take the sum of those first, and then you add the difference in par. Most of the time, it'll only be 1 point. But sometimes you might get a 72-70 situation, then it'll probably be 2. That's probably the highest I've ever seen it. I've never seen a difference of 3, but there could be situations out there. So just a heads up. Okay. All right, and those handicap allowances that I mentioned are in Appendix C of the rules of handicapping. These are one of the few recommendations or one of the many, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Recommendations the USGA has given us nowadays. Through all their math and their hole-by-hole score posting and years of data, they have come up with new recommendations based on the format of play. You'll see individual stroke play, 95%, match play 4-ball, 90%, Chapman Pinehurst, 60 low, 40 of the high, so on and so forth. I'll let you check that out. That is in Appendix C of the rules of handicapping. Okay. Now, one thing that I get asked all the time that you will not find in the rules of handicapping is what happens when partners enter an event and there's a greater than 10 stroke difference between either their handicap index or their course handicap. Well, here is what the USGA has said for this question. Based on the new research and the new WHS calculations, the recommended handicap allowance for 4-ball stroke play has been reduced from 90% 95% for men and women respectively to 85% for both genders. As a result of this lower percentage, of course, the 4-ball stroke play, you know, the one referring to when there's a big stroke difference between partners, no longer applies. Okay, that being said, you know, we know if we have a scratch and somebody who's a 54 handicap who enter, you know, an event, they're most likely going to win a couple things, maybe. So even though it is not in the rules of handicapping, committees and, you know, tournament committees, things like that, they can decide to use this if they want, but it would be up to the committees involved or the committee in charge of the competition to decide if they want to use that tool. Okay. Because I know even for us here at the association, we still use that whenever there's a difference between partners. So it's still available to you, but you just won't find it in the rules of handicapping. Oops. Okay. Another thing you should know is when golfers are playing golf, right? The most likely score guidelines, all right? Most likely score is only used whenever a golfer has started a hole but has not completed it, okay? And the USGA has given us some guidelines now of how to do this based on the position of the golf ball and the hole. Okay, so here's a little table that can be found in the rules of handicapping. So if the ball is on the green and within 5 feet of the hole and the golfer picks up, you add 1 additional stroke. Okay, if the golf ball is between 5 feet from the hole and 20 yards away from the hole, here's a little gray area here. You add 2 or 3 strokes, depending on the position of the ball, the difficulty of the green, and the ability of the player. All right. Now, if the golf ball is beyond 20 yards from the hole, there's some more gray area. Then you add 3 or 4 additional strokes to the golfer's total, depending again on the position of the ball, the difficulty of the green, and the ability of the player. Okay. Again, this will only be used whenever a hole is started but not finished. Okay. Now what happens when a hole is not played, whether it's under construction, lightning, weather, you know, whatever. Whenever there is a hole not played, the score can still be posted. And the score used for any hole not played is what is known as net par, or some people like to call it par plus pops, or par plus for short. Okay. And again, kind of as I mentioned, whenever a hole is not played, you would use this. And for those of you newbies, par plus pops means your pops is dictated by whatever your course handicap is. So if I were to get only 1 pop on a par 4 and I didn't play that hole, that means the maximum score that I would get since that score or since that hole is not played is different from that double bogey, but it would be net par of 5. Par on that hole plus 1 pop, which would give me 5. And since I didn't even get to double bogey, we don't even need to worry about additional adjusting there. Okay. All right, PCC. Again, I said some of these slides would be similar. They're just in a different sort of order here. These are just big topics that not only you should know, but your members should know as well. Okay, so one of the big introductions with the World Handicap System is this idea of PCC, or the playing conditions calculation, that based on the playing conditions that day, golfers could potentially get a haircut or a boost to their differential. Okay, hopefully not affecting their handicap index very much. That's the goal of the PCC. So it was designed to be very conservative. And by conservative, initially, it was only thought and hoped to be in use 10% of the time. And I have good news. Based on 2.4 million scores last year, the PCC only kicked in 8% of the time. So it's working as designed. But now the USGA is kind of rethinking this, and they're actually going to raise kind of how much or how often the PCC can be kicked in, right? So they're making it a little less conservative. And so instead of 10% of the time, they're raising it to 20. Okay, so most of the time here in Colorado, most of our PCs happen during the shoulder seasons. Whenever the grass is green, the ground is still a little cold and balls tend to roll a little bit further. Maintenance practices aren't nowhere near where they are during mid-season. So scores tend to be a little bit higher or lower during the shoulder seasons. Okay. Okay. And the PCC, for those of you who are new, again, only kicks in once a day. It considers acceptable scores submitted from a golf course, a rated golf course, from both genders, of course. It requires at least 8 acceptable scores submitted by players with a handicap index of 36.0 or lower. And it is applied to the score differentials, not the score themselves or itself. And it includes both 9 and 18 hole acceptable scores. Now, with PCCs though, if there are not, or that if that minimum threshold of 8 scores are not posted, and only 7 of those scores are posted that day, and that 8th score is posted the next day, there will not be a PCC retroactively applied to everybody's scores. Why? Because the PCC is only triggered once. So if that PCC was not triggered, regardless of how many scores are posted later, there will not be a PCC. Now, if there is at least 8 scores and a PCC is triggered that day, and somebody then retroactively posts that score, then a PCC, since it was applied already due to the minimum applications here, then anybody who retroactively posts on that day will get the benefit of that PCC adjustment. Okay, let me stop there. Does that make sense?
Aaron, I'm not sure if I understood. They're going to use it more often or less often?
Well, so the PCC is an algorithm, and so they won't use it. The system based on playing potential, things like that, kicks in automatically if necessary.
Yeah.
So will be designed to kick in more often if
More often.
trends show for it to do so.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what about the once a day? Because what I was reading in the guidelines was that you have to post the day of for it to
Correct.
apply. Are you saying something different than that, Aaron?
Nope. That's kind of why
Okay.
I asked. So unless the golfers post the day of and it kicks in that day, a PCC will not retroactively be kicked in.
I'm sorry, I got interrupted. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. So, and if a PCC is triggered for that day, everybody who posts after that day will get the benefit of that PCC.
Oh, they
Okay.
will. So
They-
it is retroactive.
If it is triggered. If it is not triggered that day because it is only run once, and people then start retroactively posting, trying to get it to trigger, it will not trigger because it was not triggered in the first place.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, this one's a little tough here. But I wanted this, that's kind of why I wanted to stop here, because there's usually questions on this. But the good thing is it's done automatically. You don't need to go in there and try to make any calculations and things like that. The
Right.
system based on data will do it all for you. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then from there, that's usually why something didn't happen. People didn't post their scores. Okay, good question though, Deb. Okay, let's move on. If you have any other questions about PCC, we're going to be coming up here on a slide and you can ask them then. Okay. The two big ticket items here kind of towards the back of the rules of handicapping. All right. And those are known as the ESR, or exceptional score reduction tool that the system has built in. And the other one is the CAT procedure. All right. Both designed to help catch people who are trying to cheat the system. Okay. So if your round was exceptional, what does exceptional mean? So a score differential of 7 strokes or better, then the handicap index at the time the score was posted is defined as an exceptional score. So if the score posted comes up with something or a differential that is 7 to 9.9 strokes better than the handicap index at the time the score was posted, there will be an ESR adjustment of 1 point applied to that score and the previous 19 scores, thus affecting the handicap index primarily by 1 point, give or take. Okay, now, if the score produces a score differential that is at least 10 strokes or lower than the handicap index at the time the score was posted, there will be an ESR adjustment of -2, again applied to not only that score, but the previous 19 scores as well. All right, I think that'll definitely affect the handicap index, don't you? Okay, let's take a look at what that looks like, shall we? Okay, so here we are, 5/22/2020. This golfer here shoots a score that triggers or that calculates a score differential of 4.1. And this triggers an ESR adjustment of -1. Again, applied to not only that score, but the previous 19 scores too, even if those 19 scores aren't being used in the handicap calculation. Okay, so you can kind of see here, this is score 20, only the previous 20 scores are used to calculate a handicap index. So even though there's triggered here, it applies to all these previous scores as well. Okay, now the golfer plays back to normal here, back to normal, back to normal, back to normal. Uh-oh. Here it is, another 4.1. Uh-oh. No good. What happens there? -1 adjustment is applied to not only that score, but the previous 20 scores as well. But oh man, what do we have here? We have a double up situation. So in cases where it doubles up, it could have potentially affect the handicap index pretty good here if these last 4 scores are being used in the handicap index calculation, which looks like this one might be. So as you can see, this will definitely affect the handicap index. But the good thing about ESRs are that they won't stay on your record for 365 days or anything like that, but they are designed to be played out of. As soon as this last ESR adjustment is kicked out of the previous 20 scores, it's almost like it never happened. But it will still remain in their score history, or in this golfer's score history, in case a handicap committee needs to take a look at that information. Okay, so just a heads up there. Okay, and the good thing about ESR is, just like with PCC here, it has its own column in GIN. So those of you on the handicap committee can see who and when an ESR was triggered and what score made it trigger. Okay, and by how much, whether -1 or -2. All right, and the final key piece for handicap committees to help them identify those individuals trying to cheat the system is the cap procedure. And in order to understand a hard cap, soft cap, we must know kind of what our anchor is for that. And what I mean is the introduction of the low handicap index. This was always apparent, but you actually just had to go almost calculate it yourself with the old system. But now, both the current handicap index and the 365-day low handicap index will be seen not only on the admin side of things, but also on the golfer side as well, gin.com and the GIN app. And the reason why a golfer needs to see that is because based on the difference between the two indices, that will then determine whether a golfer will be soft capped or hard capped. Okay. So a low handicap index, here's just kind of, just so you all know, here's a situation. Okay. So on 4/25/2021, the golfer submitted a score which produced a handicap index of 7.1. The low handicap index at that time is 6.2 from 5/5/2020. When the golfer plays again on 5/16/2021, the low handicap index of 6.2 would still be used for the cap procedure, even though it's more than 12 months old. Now, upon recalculation that next day, a new low handicap index would be set. So the question that we've been getting here in the office is, hey, it's been more than 365 days. I haven't played yet, but my low handicap is still the same. So your low handicap will still be the same until there's a score posted to trigger an update for both. Okay, so the key here is in order to, in order for a score to update, there needs to be a score posted. And when a score is posted, that not only updates the handicap index, but it also updates the low handicap index as well. Okay, so that's just what I want you all to gain from this slide here. So technically a low handicap index could be longer, or it could be in place for longer than 365 days, depending on how often the golfer's playing. Okay, and the cap procedure was introduced to limit the upward movement of a handicap index. Kind of what these look like, right? So I call a soft cap kind of a little hill, and then the hard cap I call a wall. So you reach the soft cap whenever the current handicap index gets to 3 points higher than the low handicap index. Okay, so that's kind of the hill, because you can still get over that hill and post scores and your handicap index can still go up. It's just a little bit harder. So whenever a handicap index is soft capped, every time they post a score, the differential gets a bit of a haircut. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like, shall we? Okay, here's the soft cap. All right, and the soft cap, kind of as expressed here, is a suppression mechanism. Again, it suppresses things, but it doesn't stop them. Okay. Okay, in this case, player A has a low handicap index of 10. His current 8 out of 20 average is a 15.2. First step, again, the system will do this for you. So again, you don't need to worry about doing any of this math, just in case and you guys were afraid. So you would subtract the low handicap index from the current 8 out of 20. Step 1. 15.2 minus 10 equals 5.2. Okay, step 2. You determine how much greater than 3 that is. Okay, so 5.2 minus 3 is 2.2. Then the system will take 50% of that, which is 1.1, and subtract it from the current 8 out of 20 average. So instead of a handicap index being 50.2, the handicap index for this golfer will be soft capped at 14.1. Okay. So the key here is 3. Okay, now let's go back to this slide here. Now, once a handicap index gets to 5 strokes higher over the low handicap index, that would then be considered hard capped, meaning the current handicap index can no longer increase until that low handicap index increases. Okay, so let's take a look at that example. So player A has a low handicap index of 10, and his current 8 out of 20, or their current 8 out of 20 is 17.4 this time. But in order to get to a hard cap, the system will always go through the initial soft cap procedure. So step 1, subtract those two. 17.4 minus 10 gets us to 7.4. Step 2, determine how much greater than 3 7.4 is. Very easy so far. And then step 3, we'll take 50% of that 4.4 and subtract it from 17.4, or the current 8 out of 20 average. Okay.
Excuse me, Aaron.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, Deb.
Shouldn't we be subtracting 5 from 7.4?
Nope. So again, but in order to get to 5, you'll see here. You'll
Okay.
see here in a second. You'll see here in a second. Okay. So again, in order to get to a hard cap, the system will always go through the soft cap procedure first. Okay. So based on the soft cap calculation, this handicap index is a 15.2, right? It's right. But in this instance, the hard cap will kick in. Why? Because the golfer has a low handicap index of 10. So again, a current handicap index cannot go higher than 5 strokes over this number. So after the handicap index goes through the soft cap procedure, it's still 0.2 of a point higher. So instead of a 15.2 handicap, the system will hard cap this golfer at 15.0. Okay, and the only way this will change is if this number here increases. And it can increase on its own, or a committee member can always adjust it if needed due to injury, things like that. We'll I'll show you where to do all that stuff here in a second. Any questions there? Those are just the big ticket items I wanted you all to know. about the WHS. Any questions there? A lot of these should be repeat if you've been a part of my other sessions. I hope anyway. Any questions here? Feel free to take yourself off of mute while I grab a drink of coffee here.
Yeah, I have a question on the scoring record. You showed in your 20 scores there, home, away, 9. We're thinking about here at Highlands Ranch posting competition scores this year. If a player is a member of multiple clubs or goes to another club as a guest and plays in one of their competitions, does the system know that when we post competition at home here, it's linked to their home course? Because we want to sort home competition scores as a index for club competitions. If it gets somewhat clouded by playing at competitions at other courses, is there a way for me to sort out those home competitions?
No, there is not. So the only, well, I guess there is. So whenever there's a competition score posted, you'll use a C, obviously. But right now, I believe if a score is posted at another course for an individual using Golf Genius, the score posted will be CA, competition away.
Oh, okay.
So you could potentially sort the Excel that's available to you by that. Or what you can do is not all courses use Golf Genius. So in that case, it'll still be posted at a competition. But you can also sort via not only the competition score, but the golf course as well. But that's really the only 2 tools you'll have available for that function right now.
Okay, so I might see a CA if it was a Golf Genius.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But then it would also be up to the tournament committee or the competition committee at the other course to label it properly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay.
Another
anybody
question.
else? Oh,
I have another. Actually, I have 2 more.
Okay.
If people use the app and post hole by hole scores, I know we can see hole by hole data from Golf Genius. Can I see hole by hole scores through the GIN app somewhere on the GIM admin program?
Yep, you can. And we'll talk about that later in reports.
Great.
All right. And what's the third one?
Soft and hard caps we have a lot of members that go to warm weather states, and they hit the soft cap within a few rounds and we get nothing but complaints. Is a USGA, what does USGA say about that, if anything?
Right now it's just reliant on the course rating system. And with changes to it, we're hoping, or the USGA is hoping, that the USGA course rating guidelines that have been introduced will start to affect those courses, and their ratings will start to increase and start to level out kind of that situation. Because with increased ratings, lower handicap indexes. With lower ratings, higher handicap indexes, which right now is what we're seeing kind of in the South versus what's going on here in Colorado at altitude. So that's the goal for now. And if that doesn't happen, then the USGA is kind of taking a look at that again. But that's something they're always looking at, is the difference between the two. But again, somebody just goes down and plays a few rounds in Arizona or wherever, that's not their home club, and then plays this summer in Colorado. Based on the data, as a person playing at somewhere that's not their home course is most likely going to shoot 4 to 5 scores or 4 to 5 shots higher at that course than they are at their home course. So I don't know. It's always been a topic of conversation, if you will, but that's probably the best answer I have for you at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good question though.
Aaron, could I ask a question going back to the handicaps?
Yeah.
What is the real difference between the playing handicap and the course handicap? And I mean, how is it applied? Why do we need to know it?
So again, the playing handicap is essentially the course handicap with a bit of a haircut applied to it, right?
Uh-huh.
So in the past system, it was known as the course handicap. It was course handicap or adjusted course handicap. So instead of calling it an adjusted course handicap, it's known as the playing handicap. And most of the time, 90% of the time, they will be the exact same number. So your course handicap and your playing handicap will be the exact same. The only time that they're going to be different is if you use a handicap allowance from that table I showed you to your event that's being played. 4-ball match, 4-ball stroke play, not using 100% of the handicap index or 100% of the course handicap. So that would be when the playing handicap would be different than the course handicap.
Okay.
Good question. Okay. Let's see here. Any other questions here? I know that was a lot of stuff. This next couple of slides here should go quicker. We're at 11:21, but I think we're right on time just about. So we'll go ahead and keep moving and grooving. Okay, score submission. All right, net double bogey. Everybody's favorite topic.
Yeah.
I got a call a couple days ago saying, what's my ESC score now that I'm 20? I'm like, oh, well, two things. First one, ESC no longer exists. And second, it would depend on the holes that you get the 20 pops on. So that was a fun conversation. But now he is better informed. So that's a good thing. That's all we can hope for. People being better informed. Okay, so net double bogey. Of course, is a player's maximum hole score for handicap purposes. Okay, and what does this do? It ensures that one hole does not mess up a player's handicap index. So if you play, par all the way through, and then you have a hole where you score a 12, it just ensures that that one hole that you shot a 12 on doesn't bump your handicap index, by X amount of strokes. Okay, so now let's take a look. How do you calculate net double bogey? Hopefully most of you all know this, and a lot of this is just repetition for you. But all net double bogey is par plus 2 plus or minus any handicap strokes given or received on any one hole. But net double bogey in itself is kind of a weird name, right? I really don't like to describe net double bogey as net double bogey. I always like to describe, whenever I'm teaching these, net double bogey is double bogey plus, because again, you always start at double bogey and adjust if there's a number that's higher than that. Okay, so that's why I like to call it double bogey plus. If the golfer has not reached double bogey on any one hole, no need to adjust. Okay, hopefully that makes things a little easier. Okay, so now let's take a look at a couple of examples. Okay, this one here, Cape Mate, for those of you who were at my previous session, this is the same scorecard. Same golf course, same scores. So on the 2 par 5s here, Cape Mate was just having a tough day, shot a 9 on the first one, and also shot a 9 on the second one. And it just so happens that because these 2 par 5s are the 2 hardest holes on this 9, she indeed gets 1 pop. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Well, that means for handicap purposes, that the highest score she can get on that hole is double bogey plus 1. So let's take a look. So since it's a par 5, double bogey on a par 5 is a 7, plus that 1 pop is an 8. So instead of a 9 on that hole here, she actually gets an 8. Right? And if we look at this second par 5, again, she only gets 1 pop here, double bogey plus pops. She gets 1 pop there, double bogey, par 5, 7 plus 1 pop. Maximum hole score here is also an 8. So there's potentially 2 scores whenever somebody plays. The score used for competition or for that day, and the score that's postable to GIN. So in this case, the score used for competition is this 46. The score used for the event, and the score that's postable to GIN would be 2 strokes lower of 44. Okay.
Aaron,
All
I
right.
have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
The question is, when keeping score in Golf Genius for an event, does
Mhm.
Golf Genius, when you post to Gin, automatically adjust for the net double bogey?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no worries. Thanks, Judy. Okay, so let's kind of go over this. So again, this is why I always recommend people post their scores hole by hole. Does everybody need to do it? No, I just recommend doing so. Why? Because you'll see here in a second. So player A, as you can see, this player gets a lot of strokes here. And so the score for that day is a 68. So now let's adjust these for net double bogey to calculate our maximum postable score. Okay, par 4 with 1 pop, double bogey plus. Maximum score there is 7. Par 3, we didn't quite reach double bogey. We only shot a 4, a bogey. Do we need to adjust that? No. So we keep that 4. Oh, same par 5 that was giving Kate issues. This golfer shot a 10. Again, double bogey plus. Maximum postable score on one hole, and this hole in particular would be
Oh, 9.
9. Good. Holes 4 and 5 are similar to 1. Par 4s with 1 pop
7.
each. 7, 7.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Player A parred a hole. Do we even need to think about adjusting that?
Mm.
No. No. All right.
Yeah.
1 par always helps. Okay. Keeps the people going. Okay. Again, par 5. 2 pops here on this one as well. Double bogey plus. Here would be 9.
That'll be a 7.
Hole number 8. Double bogey on a par 4, 6 plus 1. Maximum postable score there would be a 7. Now, the only difference between all the par 4s is hole 9. Because this one par 4 in particular, it is the 3rd hardest hole on the front 9. So this golfer or player A gets 2 pops on this par 4 only. So what does that mean? It changes our maximum postable score on this one hole only. To what, you ask? Well, double bogey, so 6 instead of +1, +2. So our maximum postable score on this par 4 in particular is actually an 8. So what does that mean? So for the day or for the event, our score was a 68, but the maximum postable score that we can post to Gin is a 61. So you'll see there's a 7-shot difference there. So if golfers aren't doing this, you'll see, you can imagine handicap indexes may be a little off, give or take. So that's why it's very, very important. If you're using Golf Genius, it's done for you. If you're posting hole by hole scores, Gin does it for you. Now, if you're posting scores 9 hole total or 9 or 18 hole total, this has to be done by hand. So just a heads up. Okay, now I get the question, well, I'm a new golfer. What's my maximum postable score on any one hole without having a handicap index? Well, good question. There's an answer for that, and that is par +5. Until that golfer gets a handicap index or that initial handicap index, the maximum score on any one hole is par +5. So 8 on a par 3, 9 on a par 4, 10 on a par 5. Okay, the acceptability of scores. Okay, a score is acceptable from any authorized format of play, which meets the provisions set within the rules of handicapping. Okay, Chapman scramble or Chapman alternate, or no, not alternate shot. 4-ball match, 4-ball stroke, things like that. Okay, scores in both match play, stroke play, like I just mentioned. Even when one or more holes have not been completed. Scores on all courses with current course ratings and slope ratings made during an active season. Again, as I mentioned before, the active season here in Colorado is March 15th through November 15th. If a golfer goes down south or plays in Mexico or wherever, during those off months here, they will be able to post those scores as long as wherever they're playing is in an active season. Scores made under the rules of golf and the modified rules of golf for players with disabilities. And then this is a fun one, when accompanied by at least one other person. Excuse me. Now the question I get is, does that person have to be playing golf? No. As long as they can attest your score that you were playing by the rules, then that score is postable. But if you play by yourself just on an afternoon, just wanted to get out and swing the club, fortunately, that round is not postable. When a player follows model local rule, even if the committee has not adopted it, the one I'm talking about is the alternative option for stroke and distance or preferred lies. Scores are postable. Unacceptable scores, as you can see here, must not be posted to a player's scoring record if a player has been disqualified from a competition for a breach of the rules of golf that might have provided the player with a significant advantage. The reason why I slowed down there is to kind of emphasize significant. So the example I always use, which hopefully you guys know the answer to, is what happens when a player completes his round or her round, signs the incorrect scorecard, and is DQ'd that way. Is that a postable score? The correct answer to that is yes, because the golfer was not provided a significant advantage. He just signed, or he or she just signed an incorrect scorecard. Okay. Other examples of unacceptable scores are foursomes, alternate shot, scrambles, and when being coached. Fortunately, those are 3 examples of unacceptable scores.
For some scrambles.
Okay, 9-hole scores. For those of you who are part of 9-hole scores, you guys know this very well. But when a 9-hole score is posted, it creates a 9-hole score differential. And then that 9-hole score differential waits for another 9-hole score to be posted to combine with that score to create an 18-hole differential. Once that is done, it will then be eligible to affect the handicap index. Until that happens, it'll wait in that player's playing history until another one is posted. So the question I always get is, well, can you combine a front 9 and a front 9 on the same golf course? The answer to that is yes, because every time a 9-hole score is posted, it creates its own score differential. It is only after the second 9-hole score is posted and that differential is created that it combines with it to give you an 18-hole score differential. So you can combine a front 9, front 9, front 9, back 9, and a back 9, back 9. Pretty much any 9-hole score you can combine with, okay? And in order to post a 9-hole score, the golfer has to at least play a minimum of 7 holes. 7 holes must be played, okay? In order to post an 18-hole score, since we're here, you must play 14. Anywhere in between, if you play 12, you can only post a 9-hole score. If you play 15, you can post an 18-hole score. If you play 6, you can't post any score. Okay. All right, score types. So I do have an update here on this slide here. So currently, in our current iteration of the rules of handicapping, these are the different score types we have. H means home, away is away, or is an A. C, competition, N means combined 9, P is penalty, and E is exceptional. There will be one addition. One thing I know moving forward in 2024, there will be one addition to this, and that'll be an L. The L will stand for league score. So you will be able to assign an L to any league score that you want. Potentially, if you want to sort somebody's score history by league scores, you can do that. And then Chris, I'm sure you're thinking of different ways to use that information to calculate a handicap index. Not recommending that, just saying that information will be available to you. Okay, I can see the wheels turning now. All right. Okay, 9-hole scores. So here's an example of what the admin, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but score type has its own column as well. You'll see A, away, H, home, and N for a combined 9. When there is a combined 9-hole score, you'll see the differential, and you'll also see the 2 courses that combine to give us this differential. And if you want to, because you guys have access to the backside of GIN, if you click edit, you can actually go into each score itself and see the 2 scores that combine. And if you need to edit one, you can do so as well. Okay. Okay, any questions there? That one was kind of easy, kind of quick. Let's see, 11:35, we're doing well. Any questions? Okay, we'll keep this train going. We have a couple more topics.
I have another question on the sorting within the gym program. If player shoots an exceptional score, whether it's home or away, and I want to sort home or away, does the exceptional score record show that it's embedded in there? It's a home score. So if I sort on just home scores, will I get that E score as part of that, or do I have to check the E box?
You'll have to check the E box and then sort by course.
Okay, thanks.
Good question.
Aaron, on the unacceptable scores, one of the things you mentioned was foursomes. I didn't get all of that. What did that mean?
So foursomes is like alternate shots, scrambles.
Alternate
things like
shots.
that.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, everybody's favorite duty. Score record maintenance. Oh, accidentally posted 2 scores. I posted things twice. I posted a 18-hole score as a 9-hole score, or 9-hole score as an 18-hole score. Now my handicap is capped and all this, that, and the other. Heard them all, I think. If I haven't, I'll let you know next year. But anyway, so we've kind of talked about this when we were talking about the PCC, but it is very important to try to post scores the day of play. So we always recommend that the player post scores immediately right after they play a round. We know that's not always doable, but with technology, things like that, now you can post a score 10 seconds after you play because there's technology in your pocket that allows you to do so. Okay, if you can't for whatever reason, we understand. Just try to make sure that that score is posted by midnight, because at midnight, now we all know a PCC will be triggered right at midnight. And in order for that score to count towards that PCC, it must be posted. Okay. Now, if a score is posted and it's incorrect, whether it be date is wrong, a 9-hole score is posted as 18, things like that, the committee can always go in and revise the score if needed. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look. So first, log into the admin portal. Second, go into the person in question and click on the score maintenance tab here. Okay. All right. Once you're there, there's a couple of different places that you can go. So if somebody accidentally posted a score twice, you can simply click delete here, and that'll obviously delete the score. Or if the score needs to be edited, you can go ahead and click edit. Okay. When you click edit, here is what'll pop up. Okay. So you can edit date played, you can edit score type. If the score is posted hole by hole, you can actually go in and adjust the whole scores if needed. The good thing about this is you can always see what the gross score is and what the adjustment is if needed. So if somebody asks you, hey, I posted a 92, why did it adjust down to a 90? Well, most likely it's because the system adjusted it for net double bogey, and you can go into that scorecard and see where it is if the score is posted hole by hole. Okay, you could change the tees played and the course played, obviously. The one thing you cannot change, and the score will need to be deleted and reposted, is in the case of an 18-hole score or a 9-hole score being posted as an 18-hole score. That, unfortunately, you can't undo. You'll just delete it and have either the golfer repost it or you can post it for them. But it's pretty easy. So very, very easy, very efficient, very user-friendly there. Okay, that was easy. I told you. Any questions about editing a score? That was probably the easiest part today so far. I just wanted to prep you for those phone calls, which I know are coming because we've gotten a couple already. So I take your silence as a no. So here we go. Penalty scores and adjusting a handicap index. Here's a fun one. Okay, so penalty scores. Well, as we kind of talked about with the fundamentals, the rules of handicapping has introduced safeguards to ensure a player's handicap index accurately reflects their playing ability, or should I say their demonstrated ability. Okay, and what are those 3 safeguards? Well, one is the PCC, playing conditions calculation. Second one we talked about was the exceptional score reduction, or ESR, commonly referred to. and the hard cap, soft cap procedure. Okay. However, even if those three things have been used and there's still some question about players' handicap and their potential and demonstrated ability, things like that, it is up to the committee then to go in and make adjustments as needed. Okay. Or it is recommended that the committee consider taking action if necessary. Okay. One of those actions is penalty scores. The club I always like to use as an example is the ranch. I don't know if Tic Tacs are still around, but the ranch likes to hand out penalty scores like Tic Tacs. They do a weekly update or status update of their club. They're able to see based on their computer software in the shop and some other software that they have. They're able to see when a player played and if a player posted, and if there's a difference, or if somebody played and they didn't post, then they go in and hand them a penalty score. No harm, no foul. It is what it is. Okay, and they'll continue doing that the entire summer to the end of the year when they stop and then wait for March to, to ice their fingers a little bit because of all the tapping that they do. Okay, so that's just one club example. Some clubs don't do penalty scores at all. So, and then everywhere else is in between. So here's a reason to give a penalty score, or a few reasons to give a penalty score. Okay. If the reason why the person didn't score was valid and an acceptable score is still discoverable, the score should be posted. Okay. No penalty score, just the score itself. That score should be posted. If there is no valid reason and an acceptable score is discoverable, that score should be posted or will be posted to that golfer. Again, no valid reason for why that golfer didn't post and you find out what the score is, committee can post that score for them. If the score is not discoverable and you found out that the golfer played, the penalty score may be posted for that golfer. You can have as many penalty scores in that golfer's profile as you want. And in most serious cases, again, there is a limit, depending on the committee, and the committee would have to come up with a limit if they want to. But after repeated failures to not post and things like that, the committee can consider resetting the player's handicap index or other disciplinary actions and procedures. I'm sure you all know what I'm referring to, so I won't go into any detail there. So, how do you apply a penalty score, you ask? Well, you go to the admin portal, go to that player, click on him or her, and then go over to post a score. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, a penalty score cannot be applied hole by hole. So you click on total score here, and you click on the penalty box. And you can either enter a manual penalty score or have it automatically done for you. I always recommend automatic. And then you can choose the type of penalty score you want, whether you want a high or a low. A high refers to posting a penalty score equal to the highest differential in the player's previous 20 scores. That one I don't see used very often, if at all. The other penalty type the other penalty score used is the low penalty type. And what this does is it posts the lowest score differential in the golfer's previous 20 scores, thus affecting the handicap index pretty dramatically. And again, if you post 8 of those 8 low differentials will only be used to calculate the handicap index. So I don't recommend doing that, but one here and there won't hurt anything. It'll adjust them, but not too much. Okay. If you really wanted to, you can actually adjust all their differentials as well, down a point, giving you the desired effect that you want for that player's handicap index. Okay. Adjusting a handicap index. Okay. So the committee should always be kind of keeping an eye on their players' handicap indexes and their demonstrated abilities. If somebody's kind of has an injury or they're playing a whole lot better, they've gotten lessons over the wintertime and they've gotten a whole lot better, things like that. So they should always keep an eye on situations like that. And so The handicap committee should consider all available information relating to a player's demonstrated ability before they make any decision. And what I'm referring to is the player scoring potential, any handicap the player has previously held, and if the player had 2 handicap indexes, we want to get those merged, but you also want to make sure that the 2 handicap indexes the players had are the same. And if not, you should see how different they are and why before we get those merged. Whether the player is an improver, a steady player, or a declining player due to injury or illness. Okay, so all those aspects should be considered before making a handicap index adjustment. So when a handicap review has been completed, the handicap committee can adjust the player's handicap, again, to better reflect their current demonstrated ability based on the results of the analysis. There are a couple of criteria, though, that have to be met before an adjustment is made. Any adjustment, whether up or down, must be a minimum of 1 stroke. So 20, the highest you can go up is 21, the highest you can go down, or the lowest you can go down, or the minimum you can go down is 19. Okay, and the minimum you can go up is 21 if our handicap index was a 20. Okay. Then except in exceptional circumstances, only increase a player's handicap index and being current handicap index by up to 5 points or 5 strokes above their low handicap index. Why? Because then they'll be capped. So again, you want to keep an eye on, if you do make a handicap index adjustment, you want to keep an eye on where their low handicap index is, as to how high you go with the current handicap index. And if there needs to be an adjustment higher than, what you're wanting to do and the cap there, then you need to adjust the low handicap index as well. And I'll show you how to do that here in a second. And as always, there's no limit to how far down a handicap index can be adjusted, only to how high a handicap index can go. Okay. So if we want to do that, how do we do so in the admin portal? Okay, here's my account. We go to the handicap management tab. So we've talked about these 3 tabs so far. Okay. Handicap management is where these 4 buttons exist. And those 4 buttons are modify handicap index, modify low handicap index, withdraw the handicap, and special update. Okay. As these 2 buttons kind of infer, these 2 will be used to modify this one, to modify this number, and this one to modify this one. Okay. So if you do click on one of these, in this case, I clicked on the low handicap index to modify that. You have to choose, what number you want to modify that to. It has to be at least 1 point though, whatever way you're going. Excuse me. And you have to choose an expiration date. Why? Any modification is only good for 365 days from the date at which it was done. Okay. So if somebody had a bad accident or things like that, and it's going to be like a couple of years before they're back to normal, unfortunately, you have to go in this same time that next year and adjust them again. Okay, so because any adjustment, whether it be to the regular handicap index or the current handicap index or the low handicap index, is only good for 365 days. So, okay, any questions there?
Yeah, Aaron, are there guidelines? I mean, other than the 5 strokes, the most common thing that I see where we would apply this is because somebody had an illness or an injury. And, they're playing a bit above their normal handicap index, but I'm not sure I would know how much to adjust.
Yeah, so again, that's kind of up to the committee and their procedures. There is some additional guidance in the rules of handicapping in Rule 5, one of the appendices. And Rule 4 as well.
Okay.
Let's see. And that'll give you a little bit more guidance, but one of the examples they use are injury. Essentially what it says is based on scores posted after injury or after illness. You never want to just guess. You always want to use information, in my opinion, to make a decision. So you only want to use scores posted after injury or illness to adjust their handicap index. And then from that information, you can then decide or use it as to how high or low they need to be adjusted.
Okay, so they would have to play some after that before you would adjust.
Correct, correct. At least one time, 1 or 2 times.
Okay,
And then what you can do is use that table. And that was on one of my screens earlier, showing based on number of scores posted. It's in Rule 5, page 50, based on number of scores posted, how many differentials are used, and if there needs to be an adjustment, things like that. So essentially what you can do is calculate a new handicap index, but in this case, a modified handicap index based off of the new information that you have after they start playing golf again.
okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good question. Anything else there? We're at
Is it-
11:51.
Is it possible in the case of a severe injury to wipe out the scoring records or essentially reset it? Or is it preferred to follow the procedure you just described?
You cannot reset the handicap without getting somebody a new handicap index. And again, that would only be limited as to what they can do because you can only exist in Gen once. So the proper procedure would be adjusting as needed until the golfer's current potential is being reflected in their previous 20 scores.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Okay. I believe this is the last topic here with 8 minutes to spare. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get moving. It's not very long. So if you have any questions, we can take those after this topic, okay? Handicap review. So it is strongly recommended that a handicap committee perform a handicap review annually of all members of its club. And handicap reviews can also be conducted for individual players at any time during the season. If there's if you get a little bird in your ear saying this, that, or the other, that could potentially be cause to do a review, things like that. And handicap committees, as you can see here, should pay attention to any scores on a player's scoring record that have been brought to the handicap committee's attention. Again, the little birdie that typically flies in before or after tournaments. And additional information the handicap committee may want to consider during a review include, but is not limited to, as you can see, is on page 10 of the committee guide. I'll show you guys at the very end where to find that on our website. How did the player perform in competitions? Kind of as Chris and I have been talking about throughout the presentation. You have the ability to download to an Excel spreadsheet a player's scoring record, and then you'll have to do some playing in Excel, but you can sort via score types if you want to. One of those being competitions. Did a player have an illness or injury during the year? Like what's going on to cause this player to be playing this way? Are scores being posted in a timely manner? Are they posting day of? Are they waiting to batch post at the end of the week? Kind of what's going on there. Did the player have any WHS safeguards applied? That being ESRs, caps, or anything like that? Any PCCs that nobody else did? What's going on? It's always important to take a look at the big picture when doing a review for one person. Okay, and here are some other pieces of information that you can analyze. Frequency of score submissions, deviations from the expected score. A lot of these will be some handwritten work kind of on the side. But a lot of this stuff can be pulled for you in the reporting section. The player's scoring record history, percentage of acceptable rounds from 9-hole rounds, any scores known from unauthorized formats of play. Or my personal favorite, or the one that I always get calls on every year, is the comparison of average score differentials between competitive rounds and casual rounds. Why are they different? What's going on here? Are they trying to cheat the system? Because as much as we like to think everybody has integrity, because golf is a game of integrity, as my predecessor used to say, cheaters will always find a way to cheat. So it's always good to look at all the information to see where they're exactly trying to do that. This new system, I find it pretty easy to spot those individuals so far anyway. So it's always good to look at this. Now, to help aid you in this process of handicap review, whether you're doing it weekly, monthly, annually, they have a very robust reporting tool. And in order to get there, you log into the admin portal. And once you're logged in with your credentials, go to the reports tab. And then you'll go to, it'll automatically take you to my reports. That'll most likely be blank, or it'll give you a list of reports that you run in the past, unless you're new, then it'll just be blank. And in order to see all of the templates that you can run and the information that you can get from your league, click on templates. Then you will see this nice big drop down here. Okay. And here are 5 recommended reports that I have for you that I always use and that I've recommended other clubs use and have been recommended for me. So this is why I'm passing on this knowledge to you guys. So the first one is the cap golfer report. This will show you within a period of time who is capped and who has a soft cap and who has a hard cap. Next one would be exceptional score reduction report, ESR report. In the past, you can set the time frame, how many ESRs has my club had, and has a person had multiple. The handicap index course handicap report. This isn't a report that'll help you do peer review. It's just a report that is frequently run by everyone based on a set of T's which you assign. If you want a course handicap report from all the T's, you can do so. Or if you just want one, you can do that as well, but you can go ahead and set that as well. Okay, so that's there for you. The handicap index history report. This will show all the handicap or the handicap index history for any one golfer that you have in your league. And the most improved golfer report. This is usually run at the end of the season, but this is where you would go to run that. And during a period of time, you can set your parameters however you want, and then it'll give you kind of a list of your golfers. The only thing here with this most improved golfer report is if the golfer who you know was not active during the period of time that you select, they will not be included on your report. So you want to make sure to adjust your report as necessary to include all your golfers, or try to get all your golfers active by a certain date, just so you know that on that date you are safe to run that report from that day to the end of the year to get the most accurate results. Okay. And the final one, which I don't have a cool red box for, but Chris asked earlier, is this hole by hole scores report. Okay, so this you can choose the course, tee set, gender. You can do a couple different filters here. And this will essentially give you every score posted from either a member or non-member or both for the time frame that you choose. So if you want it for a month, you can do that. If you want it for a year, you can do that. I don't think you can go back more than a year. I haven't tried, but if you want to, you can play with it. Again, you can't break the system. So I encourage you to look at all of these if you want to, just to see the information that you get. And maybe it can be helpful. Maybe you need it. Maybe you don't. This way, you know. So I would encourage you all to play with that there. Okay. For more information, please visit coloradogolf.org/world handicap system. And for those of you who are interested in that committee guide and some of the topics and want to take a deep dive in some of the topics we did today, here's where you find it. Go to coloradogolf.org, click on membership, click on World Handicap System, and you will be brought to World Handicap System Hub. From there, click on Club Resources, and this will take you to this Club Resources page. Once you get to this page, Handicap Committee Guide is right there. Once you click on it, it'll pop out in a new tab, and you can download it and save it wherever you want to. You can download it and print it. You can just take a look at it and throw it away, whatever you want to do. It's available to you. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. It's been very helpful in a couple of things. It talks about left-hand versus right-handed. Should professionals have handicap indexes? All kinds of things that we didn't talk about today, because as you can tell now, we are at time. So unfortunately, today is the last presentation that I have for the season. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. But with that, are there any last questions that I can answer today?
Aaron, I had one about the report for the handicap index course, handicap report. I was trying to do it 2 different ways, to print it out by in order of lowest handicap to highest. And
Mhm.
also do it by alphabetical name, but I'm having trouble with that.
Yeah, so what you might have to do is just get it out to an Excel spreadsheet and then modify it from there. That's what I found the easiest.
You mean
Sometimes the,
well, I use a Mac, so I don't have Excel.
see, I have a Mac too, but I have Excel on my Mac, so it makes things easier because the numbers app isn't really the easiest with Gin, unfortunately.
Okay, so I probably should get Excel,
Um,
but even if I do, so how do I transfer that? Like, how do I
It'll
make that
have to be a
happen?
filter. So there's other places where you can go to filter. Here, let me see. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Okay. So let me go. If you go here, let me log into Gen real quick and I'll show you my screen
Okay,
and I'll show you. So there's an additional set of filters that you can use. Okay, so let me show my screen again. Let me hop back in here. Okay. Let me show my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh, hang on, wait for it. Okay, there we go, share. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So you go to your reports, right? Well,
Okay.
first of all, can everybody see the screen? Okay.
Yes.
So this is a master, so unfortunately you won't see every club's, but you go to yours. So you go to templates, handicap index, course playing handicap report. You go to view. This will be a drop down here. So you can set kind of, the information that you want, things like that. And then you go to this advanced tab. And then you just set your display columns in your primary sort order. So you would do ascending or descending, and then you can choose however you want to ascend or descend.
Okay,
Does that make sense? I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
can do it by T. Let's see. We'll try Lone Tree. So if we do that, let's see if we can do it by T. No, so you'll be able to do it by handicap index, call, any of these guys here, but unfortunately you won't be able to do it by T set. If you wanted to do it by easiest to hardest T, that might be something that you'd have to do within Excel, or if you can find a way to transfer it over to numbers, you can do it in there as well.
yeah, I don't know how to transfer it to either or, but
Yeah, so when you run it, you can export it here.
I see, okay,
You can export it here, and then you can determine the format you want it in: HTML, PDF, XLS, and XLSX. When you run it on a Mac, I haven't run it on one before, but you should get an additional option here,
uh-huh,
and then you just click export.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
But in this case, I ran it for all T's, and then, yeah.
Okay.
So that's how
All right.
you would kind of do that. Make
Thank you,
sense?
I'll play around with it.
Yeah, I think I'd play around with it before you go buying Excel and things like that. If it's not
Sure.
necessary, you don't need to do it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, yep. All right, any other questions?
Yes,
Concerns?
Aaron, I have a question.
Yes.
So part of what we've been talking about is educating golfers. Is there like a packet of information we have available to us through CGA for making a presentation?
A presentation, no. Printable things, yes. So I have a bunch of printable options on our website that you can use. In that World Handicap System area there on the right-hand side, there's tools for handicap chairs, and there's a bunch of like net double bogey pictures and things that you can post places that you want to. If you want to do a presentation, I have a very short and sweet 35-minute presentation that you can use that I can send you slides for if you want. It doesn't go into nearly as depth into all topics as you may want, but I can certainly send it over to you if you want that. Yes, I would just encourage you to poke around and see what you want to download and use for your members.
Okay, one more question. I've been poking around quite a bit and I found a flip chart that goes over some of the basic things that we've covered in these two presentations. I can't find it again. I don't know where it is.
Uh-oh. Flip chart. I know of a couple in there. Which one are you referring to? There's one that has
It had all
kind
the
of a list of
formulas that
changes.
the formulas that we've covered today were in there.
Let's
It
see,
was very
there's
straightforward.
there's kind of something like this, the handicap reference guide, which has just the real basics for golfers. That has some of the equations and things.
Yes.
Okay,
Do-
let me see if I can find that. And I can send that out to you if you want that. Because this,
Okay.
in my opinion, I think these are great.
Yeah.
Very easy. Probably one of the
Are they,
best.
and you're mentioning that there are some others? More flip
Yeah.
charts?
They're not necessarily flip charts. They're just 1 8.5 by 11s, and they have
Oh.
pictures of things
Okay.
like that you can print and post. Yeah,
But the that flip chart is great.
yeah. No, I agree with you. I love these.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we have a message from Judy. How do I gain access to the admin portal? I think you were there during the beginning of the presentation. So somebody with current access to the admin portal can give you access if you want, or if you need access, you can call me and I can give you access as well. So either way, just let me know. Hopefully that helps. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop recording.